Just a quick reminder before we start the video, TF2 server, t-shirt, Patreon. Check the links in the description to help support the channel and have fun on my rebalance server. That's it, let's get started. In some of my past videos, my position on the Ambassador has been made fairly clear. Not as clear as my opinions on a certain other weapon, but clear nonetheless. I think this is a viable side grade to the stock Revolver, and the response of some people in the audience will doubtlessly be, eh? Let's back up a bit. For years, the Ambassador was a staple of any spy loadout. It was pretty much a must-pick because the sheer utility of headshots at any range was undeniable. Until the Lahototo was buffed to have a passive benefit of a longer cloak, this was about the only revolver you'd actually see equipped whether or not the spy was even good with it. There was an entire gun spy subclass that originated from this thing because it was just so powerful in the right hands. Truly, these were the glory days of spy. But of course, as is so often the case, everything changed when the Fire Nation attacked. Flash forward to 2016, Valve publishes a blog post detailing some balance changes they're planning out for the next major update, and among them is a prospective nerf to the Ambassador. Now, a lot of people were really surprised by this. After all, no one ever complained about the Ambassador. It was never banned in any competitive format. It was fine, wasn't it? Well, I thought so too, but looking back on it, even though no one really complained or brought it up before the proposed nerf, that doesn't mean it wasn't in a state that warranted the nerf. I mean, hell, a lot of people didn't complain about random crits for a very long time. That doesn't mean they haven't been terrible, it's just that sometimes people need a little push to think about game balance. But now that pendulum needs to swing in the other direction because people aren't giving this weapon the fair shot it deserves. So here's why I'm speaking in defense of the Ambassador. So, the Ambassador is a pretty unique weapon throughout the whole of TF2. Outside of the sniper primaries, it's the only weapon in the game that allows you to deal critical damage to an enemy by hitting them with a headshot. This allows you to deal high bursts of damage against single targets, but in exchange, you have a slower firing speed, lower base damage, and no random crits. There's also a headshot cooldown. You need to wait exactly 1 second between each of your shots in order to deal critical headshot damage after firing. The most recent downside, and many would argue the biggest, is that the Ambassador now has headshot damage fall off. Basically, there's an invisible wall where your headshots will stop dealing 102 damage and eventually scale down to the minimum 54 critical damage until 1200 hammer units in distance where they'll stop dealing critical headshot damage altogether. Also, there's this really annoying thing where even if you have guaranteed crits through a crits creek, flag capture, or at the very end of a successful round, your crits will still have fall off. It's dumb. However, it didn't always used to be this way. The Ambassador used to not have any damage fall off on headshots, and this made it incredibly powerful and popular. But this powerful attribute seemed to be what caught Valve's attention. They released some fairly controversial patch notes which proposed giving the Ambassador random bullet spread to make it less effective at range. Luckily, enough people slapped him on the head and told them how stupid this was, so now we have the much more manageable downside of headshot damage fall off. In the patch notes, the TF team say that when you're killed by a headshot from across the map, you expect to see a sniper. A lot of people simply interpreted this as Sniper is the only class who gets to kill people from long distances. Spy should not be able to do this because he is not Sniper. Well, no, not really.
Guess what happens next?
Other classes have long-range options, even long-range burst damage options that deal similar damage to the Ambassador. The real issue came from one important unmentioned factor: Counterplay. Getting killed by a sniper is kind of like getting killed by a sentry. There's only a few places on a well-designed map where he can remain effective for an extended period of time, and during any kind of organized push, he's pretty easily dealt with, but otherwise he's good for area denial. This, along with his notorious tunnel vision, lack of movement mechanics outside of basic walking and jumping, and his reliance on player precision, give many classes the ability to easily counter him once they know he's there. Although this is largely dependent on the map you're playing on, as certain maps will give snipers particularly unfair sightlines. If a sniper gets a cheeky kill on you from an area you weren't expecting, it's easy to call him out, and his slow movement speed along with his lack of options in close range mean he's not going to last very long. Much like a sentry in a weird spot that you could never see coming. Sure, it'll kill you once, but only once. and the sniper is putting himself at great risk to get himself out of an optimal position for what ends up being one cheeky kill. However, then you apply that same principle to Spy, and things change. This is for several reasons. For starters, no tunnel vision. Spy gets to maintain a full view of the battlefield while being able to snipe. And unlike the Classic, which shares this ability, he can perform a headshot instantly and while keeping full mobility. He can also see the health of enemy players, meaning it's easy to get a kill on an injured player anywhere across the map as long as he knows they're within killing range, even if he hasn't seen them fight or damage them himself. And finally, he can disguise and cloak or feign death to effectively put himself at any position on the map at any time to get any kills he wanted at any range and get away with it afterwards at basically no cost to himself. With all this in mind, it's easy to see why ambassador hackers were just about as common as regular sniper hackers back in the day, before it became the fucking norm. And why being in places you shouldn't be was so effective with the right people behind the barrel. The counterplay options for Sniper really didn't apply to Spy. You can only call out a general area that a Spy could either cloak away from easily, or simply feign away from once he got caught out. So yes, I'm of the opinion that the Ambassador was too powerful. It gave Spy too much for too little. Being skill-based alone isn't enough to dictate that it's balanced. It needs drawbacks, and a 15% damage penalty and 20% slower firing speed really isn't that much in the grand scheme of things, especially if you put yourself at zero personal risk to potentially do insane damage. Sniper is balanced on well-designed maps that don't give him massive sightlines that are your only means of progression. He's easily flanked, weak to bombs, easily spammed out, has little to no pushing power, and at close range it's very uncommon for him to get away with a headshot. Even the best snipers have a hard time doing this reliably. There's a reason really good snipers put those clips in their frag montages. It's cause it's fucking impressive. And even if the sniper does get you, it's as simple a matter as calling out his position to ease your team's trouble so you can deal with him easier next time, or have someone else take care of him for you. Communication is one of your best tools against a sniper, and a Spy too for that matter. You know, if you're not a free-to-play. But with Spy, that's only effective because Spy is limited to close range when he insta-kills you. These options didn't exist for the Ambassador because a Spy can easily blink in and out of existence without anyone being the wiser, or tank insane damage even if he is caught out by equipping the Dead Ringer. So eventually the nerf came and people saw just how neutered their mini sniper rifle was. It was a tragic day for Spy mains everywhere, as not only was the one gun people actually kind of respected them for using turned into a toy made by Fisher-Price, but the get out of jail free card that everyone hated was actually made more fair to fight, even if it is still really fucking annoying. And now here we are, 3.5 years after this nerf, and here I come saying this is still good? Yeah, that's what I'm saying. A lot of people will tell me that I'm objectively wrong, that this Woolen Sleevelet video proves that the Ambassador is objectively worse than the Revolver because the DPS is worse unless you're perfectly accurate with all your headshots. I'm fully aware of this video, and I have some contention with it. First of all, according to this video, the Ambassador has never been worth using in any range outside of sniper range. And of course that's just not true. Take a look at any Spy frag montage movies from before 2017. And then consider Suicide. You'll see that plenty of shots that these Spies make are well within the boundaries that the current Ambassador is effective in. Hell, look here and how it feels to play Spy. This soldier is dead whether this clip is pre-nerf or post-nerf. So is this engineer for that matter. Spy players make it out to be that the only way you can get utility out of dealing 102 damage to someone is if you're not even in a fight to begin with and you're on the other side of the map, when that's just not the case. If anything, it's a great idea to keep the Ambassador out when you're just moving around the map because, oh shit, there's a random person you had no idea was going to be around that corner because how could you possibly have accounted for that while playing this stupid fucking luck-based class? But he's at low enough health that you can just slug him and be on your merry way. Next, the DPS on the Ambassador is of course going to be worse than the stock Revolver unless you're good with your headshots. It's a weapon that encourages precision for burst damage instead of damage over time. I wonder where I've seen this design philosophy in TF2 before. Now, I don't mean to present this disingenuously because, yes, the flare gun and crossbow obviously work just as well, if not better, at long range than close range. and are substantially better at long range than their counterparts. However, this design philosophy also extends to the direct hit, the Dragon's Fury, the loose cannon, the Frontier Justice, and even the Market Gardener to a certain extent, all close range options. So this design philosophy is not unheard of, and I think you'll have a hard time convincing a lot of players that these weapons are useless. The Ambassador fits into the same role as these other weapons. It's not meant to have this high consistent DPS that the Revolver has. The slow firing speed and recharge time between headshots encourages you to, and stay with me here, play Spy as an assassin who makes well-timed picks. You know, that thing you're already supposed to be doing as a Spy anyway. Because that's my second problem with this video. If you're playing Spy in the first place, why the hell do you care about DPS? You're a fucking pick class. When you're a Spy, every second you're out of cloak or disguise in enemy territory is a gamble on your own life. So if you have an opportunity to take a high value target out in one shot from mid-range instead of 2 or 3 at close range, why wouldn't you take that? Your effective range as a Spy with your insta-kill weapon is breathing down the enemy's necks, but because you can't headshot people from across the map, now the function is useless and not worth practicing in? Why do you need to play in a way that's antithetical to Spy's playstyle in order to accomplish your goals with this weapon? It would be like if Sniper had some close range insta-kill option. Oh, wait. The old Ambassador was incredibly powerful because it effectively made Spy's main backstabbing function much more secondary to just shooting people. AKA, the reason why Sniper is better than Spy. Now, however, it's still powerful, but much more complementary to the class. If you've ever tried to backstab someone, but fucked up because your internet is literally too good for you to be playing Spy, so you only do 40 damage, would you like to take your chances gunning down that pissed off enemy in melee range 2 more times? Or would you rather give him what he fucking deserves? Or better yet, maybe you're coming up on a potential backstab target, and you see someone at just under 100 health right next to them. You go for the backstab, and just as you've been noticed, you whip out the Ambassador and slug the other guy. 2 for 1 pick. Considering how often people fall into Spy syndrome where they might get 1 kill per life, being able to potentially secure 2 kills, or at the very least ensure they'll get the target they're going for, is a massive bonus. What's also nice about the Ambassador compared to sniper rifles is that if people are aware of you as Sniper, they're going to try and move unpredictably in order to dodge your shots. But if people are aware of you as a Spy, you're usually just kind of dead. So if you're alive, then the enemy is almost certainly unaware of you, and that automatically puts you at an advantage over them because they have no idea you're even aiming at them to begin with, and they're not going to adjust their movements accordingly. Most people tend to move predictably when they think they're in a position of safety, or they might not even move at all, securing you easy headshots on enemies that you normally wouldn't be able to backstab. Speaking of Sniper, so many people like to think that the Razorback is this automatic gotcha for saying that Spy is meant to be Sniper's counter, as if that totally invalidates the point, when you can just fucking... I mean, Jesus Christ, I know they nerfed it, but do people just forget this thing even exists? They certainly seem to when they start a fight with me. Using the Ambassador has gotten me out of so many bad scrapes because the game does not take place in a vacuum. Looking at numbers and DPS alone doesn't always cut it. A lot of the time, the people who I run into are already hurt to some extent because they're on the back line retreating from enemy fire, and you're also an enemy backline specialist. And they see Spy as a free pick anyway because while most classes can do 100 damage with 1 shot, I can only do 60. Unless, of course, I click on their heads, evening the playing field. And the fact that they're so willing to underestimate you makes them easier targets to hit because they're not going to try to juke you out as much. In fact, people underestimating you is one of the best parts about this weapon. So many people think it's beneficial or even necessary to engage you in a fight and focus the hell out of you, and all it does is get them killed. And people undersell how far away you can still do respectable headshot damage with this thing. I understand that it can still feel pretty punishing, and the damage feeling more random at longer ranges doesn't help, but it's nowhere near as short as Spy mains make it out to be. It's well out of the range of a Pyro's flamethrower, which I find particularly useful. I'll take my chances at reliably two-shotting a Pyro over whittling him down with my Revolver any day. It's not that hard to hit. They only ever walk forward, you know. Though the new opaque flames don't exactly help. It's a toned down version of what the Ambassador was already good at that actually enables counterplay, making it more fair for the enemy to fight. You can still see enemy health to easily pick out low health targets. You can still get away easily after a headshot, and it increases your insta-kill range beyond that of your knife. But it's at the risk of your own skill as a player failing, because now you just don't have the safety net of long range on top of your other safety nets. But it's not just a matter of mechanical skill, although that's obviously incredibly important. It's knowing when it's a good idea to use it in the first place. You need to think while using this thing. Unless they're a light class, it's a much better idea to end fights with this weapon than start them. To use it while you're retreating after a backstab or while you happen to run into an injured enemy. If you're precise, you can easily take out power classes in a reasonable amount of time from a decent range, and light classes are an easy 2-tap as long as you land a single headshot. So many potential picks that would normally be just out of your range are now totally feasible, and for an assassin character, that's a great utility that shouldn't be underestimated. You don't have to go into a sentry's firing range in order to get certain kills now, or too close to a puppy guarding pyro, and you don't need to be precise with every single one of your revolver shots as long as you hit 1 or 2 headshots, which with some practice is more than reasonable. But honestly, even the body shot damage isn't so bad that I consider it a massive detriment. If it was, then I'd have a lot fewer complaints about the fucking Diamondback. The thing that interests me is that it seems like Spy players aren't upset that it's worse than stock, or even just a flat out bad weapon. They're upset because it's not better than stock anymore. It's no longer a direct upgrade in all situations. It's actually a situational side grade like all unlocks, except medics for some reason, are meant to be. If you want to use the stock revolver because you prefer the average higher DPS, or hitting center mass shots is just easier than hitting headshots for you, then that's totally fine. I have no issue with that. I didn't make this video to undersell the stock revolver. It's actually really good, but so is the Ambassador, and I don't think people give it the credit it deserves anymore. All I'm trying to get across is that I find the Ambassador to be on similar footing to the Revolver. And if you really don't think it's worth using anymore, or not worth practicing in, then I just don't know what to tell you. I don't know, maybe it's the edgy sniper main in me talking, maybe it's the 5 keys I spent on this thing, but I kind of just feel bad for this gun. In the end though, if people are going to keep treating it like it's some kind of garbage joke weapon, then I don't mind being the one laughing in the end.